more than any other arm of the party, the women's group. That was like their main function. Right? When we were thrown out of Church Street and decided to find our own building, it was the women's group who really took on the task of raising money to pay for PAM, our new headquarters. Right? I can't remember how many years it took, but they kept at it, and finally it was paid off. Right? And the women's group has always been at the heart of the general fundraising.
I can point to a number of events in which basically the women's arm of the party took responsibility for. We have the annual Independence Ball, organized every single year by the women's arm of the party. That particular event actually is noted for being the biggest fundraiser held by the party each and every year. Also on the party's calendar every year is the May activities. Again, the women's group take the leadership role in particular in organizing the breakfast which is held on that day. The tickets are normally sold out. I can take it a bit more personal in terms of my own constituency and canvassing. When I look at my canvassing team in the different polling divisions, they are mainly driven by women, led by women. As a matter of fact, the last election that I would have contested back in 2022, my campaign manager was a female. Women in particular have been a strong source of encouragement, motivation, involvement in the People's Action Movement and driving the party forward. The last thing I will say on that particular issue is that it is therefore not difficult for one to imagine that the first female candidate ever to contest an election in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis was under the banner of the People's Action Movement, and the first female ever to be elected to Parliament was also under the banner of the People's Action Movement, which led to the formation of the Ministry of Women's Affairs for the very first time in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Without the women's group, the finances of the party would be shambles. They are the backbone of the finances of the party. They are the backbone of the organization of the party. And so we have to give full kudos to the women of yesteryear, which is in Sir Ken's time, the women of my time and Sean's time, and I'm certain now the women going forward are really the ones who are solidifying the party and making sure that, you know, we stay true to what we have to accomplish.
We love to serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness, we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. Perspectives is a 1-hour podcast that is broadcast live every Thursday, or mostly every Thursday, brought to you by the People's Action Movement, a political party of 60 years old in St. Kitts and Nevis. This evening, by popular demand, we have with us on this edition of Perspectives our only living national hero, Sir Kennedy A. Simmons, Of course, those of you who looked at the January edition of Perspectives saw him there when we featured at that time all of the past political leaders of PAM. And the responses that we got and the feedback that we got from you, the viewers, were such that you wanted to hear more of Sir Ken. Of course, it is a privilege. It is definitely a privilege to have Sir Ken still around with us to share with us. Not many political parties have that luck. And in fact, we don't even call it luck on this side. We call it a blessing. And so we are so happy that from time to time, we can invite Sir Ken here to talk with us and to delve into things of the past that still have relevance today in 2025. On this edition of Perspectives, the topic for discussion is putting people first, what it means. And Sir Ken is going to share with us his own perspectives. After all, the name of the show is Perspectives, on what it means for this political party, and certainly for his generation as a founder of this political party, what they meant when that philosophy of putting people first was adopted. So on that note, I want to welcome Sir Ken back to Perspectives. It's a pleasure to have you. And we will hear from you for a brief moment, and then we would cue in some remarks that you made in the 2021 Convention of the People's Action Movement, talking about that very same theme. But just for you now to say your opening.
Well, thank you very much, Laverne. It is a pleasure for me to be here, in one sense. And I also think it's a responsibility that I owe to be here, particularly at this time. I want to congratulate you on continuing this program. I enjoyed the last one with Mr. Grant and Sean.
Oh, the
Sean.
past political leaders,
yeah,
yes.
I enjoyed the program, being there. And tonight, in fact, I'm doing this program tonight specifically because this is our 60th anniversary.
It is.
And it's a tremendous achievement for a political party.
Most definitely.
And I want all the people, young and old, who have contributed and helped along the way to give PAM this longevity, to give themselves a quiet, private round of applause. And as one of the political leaders, I am very thankful to the people. Here we are, here's that word again. We can't do anything, really, without the people. And we have to be cognizant of the people's needs and requirements. The putting people first, really, is about ensuring that we perform, we do our jobs, we work in order to provide for them a better quality of life, putting their needs, their aspirations first. This is not about any personal aspirations or getting kudos or getting financial benefit, as some people seem to think. Right? And that concept really gives politicians a bad name. Right? But I would like to look back a bit through history, and by selecting some of the experiences over the past 6 years, right, to invite and inspire the next generation, this generation, and the ones to follow, right, to come forward and to recognize that this is about serving the people and to get that fire in them to come forward to serve the people of the country.
Well said, well said. There's nothing like service for the people and for a country. I don't think that could be matched in money or any other form. But to set the tone for this conversation, let's just insert a part of your presentation at the People's Action Convention in 2021, where you sort of set the stage as to where and how this putting people first theme came from. So we'll play that now.
A lot of the misinformation that is spread about PAM is designed to destroy our good name and our identity. And I say to you, don't let it happen. I want to suggest to the leadership that in order to help our members to learn about the brilliance of what the party has done for the country, we should commission a reprint of some of the earlier PAM documents, including the PAM 25th Anniversary magazine. A lot of information in here. Our brief sojourn into history would not be complete without reference to our founder, Dr. William Herbert. I'm very happy that the gentleman from Dominica, he must really used to follow the party a lot in those days, mentioned the contribution of Dr. William Herbert. Under his leadership, the pioneers engaged in robust discussion about a name for the party. Dr. Herbert was adamant that the party name was very important, that it must say something about us as an organization. First, the word people had to be in it, because our purpose was to put people first and to improve the quality of life for all. I recall that he came fully prepared that first night to our inaugural meeting at Pall Mall Square, now Independence Square, armed with a document that outlined the philosophy and core principles of what PAM was to stand for. The text of that document can be found in the same PAM's 25th Anniversary magazine. For us, in 1965, and still today, putting people first was more than words. It was and is our philosophy. That is why our organization is not called party. It is a movement. It is the People's Action Movement. When you read my book, you will smile when you discover one of the names that had been proposed. We chose the name People's Action Movement because we wanted to emphasize that we are more than a party, that our principles should resonate across all strata of society, but more importantly, that they must reflect the needs of the poor and working class people. I have observed that the philosophy and mantra of PAM, putting people first, has been so impactful that others have warmly embraced it. They are welcome to embrace it, but it remains the philosophy of PAM. And if some of you are too young to know, in various manifestos long before this coalition, you will find the PAM reference to PAM putting people first. In one particular manifesto, it is even on the outside. And then when you go in, it is again on the first page. And then it is on every single page of this document. It has putting people first, everyone. So that there is no doubt where that comes from.
So we just heard that little clip that was extracted from some remarks that our national hero, Sir Ken, made at PAM's political convention in 2021. And in that clip, he established how that whole philosophy of putting people first came into being. Now, interestingly, we're seeing it pop up all across the Caribbean with other political parties. But Sir Ken, you're adamant that this was a philosophy that started in 1965.
1965. This was definitely a philosophy that started, and we documented that our approach, that it's all about the people. Right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to go before the formation of PAM. And therefore make it clear that in fact the desire to help people, the desire to address some of the ills of society at the time, right? That was one of the factors that actually stimulated and caused the formation of PAM. And I start with the electricity demonstration.
Yes.
There was no PAM. PAM had not been formed yet. But the government of the day had come up with a policy that they were going to charge for electricity by floor space in addition to the consumption, right, in order to make more money for the generation of electricity.
Yes.
See, that was really putting the pressure on ordinary people, people with small homes, some people with bigger homes with lots of high usage of electricity also complain. And I had just come back from college, first car, and going around the country on the weekends and stopping at the bars and so on. And I can pinpoint it, that we were in Freight's shop on Molyneux, and the discussion centered particularly on what was right in front of us, because Mr. Freight's was expanding shop in the bar area, and he was on the way. He had laid out an area, they had poured a floor, some columns were up. There were no walls, there were no electrical connections in that, but the people had already come to his establishment, right, and measured up his proposed expansion, right, so as to charge electricity by this floor space, which would include the addition. Well, there was an uproar in the discussion on that. I sat there, listening mainly, and it upset me. Well, a group of people, including led by Dr. Herbert, decided that they're going to have a demonstration. I ended up being in the demonstration. I'm not going to go into it in detail. I think it's well presented in my book. But I ended up being in the demonstration, but more than that, because my friend Richard Keynes happened to be the standard bearer, right, and was going to carry the banner, and I was talking to him before the procession moved off. I ended up carrying one side of the banner of it, and he carrying the other side. Now, the truth is, that was just on pure personal conviction. I had nothing to do with the organization or anything. But in the weeks following that, there seemed a desire to have something more apart, to have something more permanent. And the question was raised, is it, do we really want to have a political party? What do people think? And so PAM, it actually started in trying to do its own personal poll on what the people think. Right. A meeting was called and inviting persons who were interested. It was on a Sunday afternoon. I went along to the meeting for one thing, and didn't have much else to do, and tried to be as unobtrusive as possible. But eventually, cut a long story short, the group that was assembled there decided that it was worthwhile to try and form a political party. And they decided to name a committee to go around the country, having some meetings, meeting people in different villages, and getting a sense of what the people thought. And not just going out there, well, a group of us, we want to be big time politicians, so we're going to start a party. That was not how it was. So we went around from village to village. Well, I should say that I was one of the persons chosen, much to my surprise, to be part of this committee, to go around the country. We did that. We were given a time to work, and we went having meetings in different villages, and we came back to give a sense to the meeting as to what people thought. And people were enthused. Village after village, people were enthused. They wanted this thing. So then it is out of that right, that PAM was formed. It is because of the desire to help people who could not defend themselves, right, who were faced with this oppression at the time by government. This is on St. Kitts. Of course, at that time, there was a lot of dissatisfaction in Anguilla, dissatisfaction in Nevis, and here it was now that St. Kitts having its own dissatisfaction. So that was, PAM in a sense came out of that, right? To form an organization whose principal objective was to help people, right? Was to help people to a better quality of life. Right? I mean, when you put that alongside the sugar industry, at that time the sugar industry was not making any money, and the planters were happy to get the government, let the government become involved, and in fact, the government actually took over the sugar industry, which was failing anyway. And I could understand the need and the desire to do that at the time, because the workers...
It was a major employment.
It was the largest employer in the country, and the workers, I mean, didn't have an alternative at that point in time. The problems were amplified by the fact that here it is, the workers' representatives who were working against the planters in order to get benefits for them, found themselves being replacing the planters. So we were in the ridiculous situation where they were negotiating against themselves, and they would come after that every year and say, well, we have negotiated 5% more for you, and so on. It was a totally ridiculous situation. You can't serve God and Mammon at the same time. And what was happening in the society at the time? That situation was affecting not just the workers who were feeling the pressure, but it was running through the whole society. But the shopkeepers in the various districts, right? I mean, they were, in a sense, performing really well in order to keep the society and their communities together. I mean, there was a pattern of behavior. During the crop, you got being paid, and outside of the crop, your money will be finished. But the shopkeepers helped you to continue because the trust, right? Some people even kept the records on cigarette box opened up, right? Or on a notebook which they brought along with them. So then, when there was no money coming in, the shopkeepers in the various villages basically bore the brunt. Then the pattern would be December comes, January, everybody longing for it. The payment which was popularly called goat water payment might be made in January, and then you go and you try to pay up your bills, right? Try and keep as straight as possible during when the crop opened, and that was also to sweeten the pot so that you come to face the work with some enthusiasm.
But before
I want to make a point here. One of the things, PAM saw a need, an immediate problem. I mean, you could have conferences and discussions and whatnot to find an answer, and the economists can come and come with all kind of things there. But when PAM eventually, after 15 years in opposition, got into government, one of the first things we gave a dull season bonus, an additional bonus in the dull season.
Yeah.
And if you followed how the situation was with persons working in the sugar industry, that was a tremendous relief, not just to those persons involved, but also to the shopkeepers and everybody else in the community.
Yes. Yeah. So I think what we're doing in this conversation is really enumerating all of the ways that PAM has always put people first.
Yes.
So with that same electricity situation that you said even preceded the formation of PAM, and you and Dr. Herbert and the early founders took it upon yourself to tell people what this impact was going to be with the flow space calculation and all of that. But just that we keep on the theme of electricity, and perhaps now is even a good time that this current set of PAM folks start to insert themselves in the conversation with this whole thing now about the top-up approach, about wanting to introduce a top-up payment, a top-up system of electricity in St. Kitts. I mean, I'm sure you heard it in recent time in the news locally, and I'm not sure if it triggered something in your mind, knowing that the party had its beginning.
So. And I don't want to bring my personal things into it, but I myself found that they really don't seem to have a serious regard for the consumer. Right? They want to do something, they just do it.
Yes.
They
No consultation.
No consultation. No the assessment of, at least if they do an
Impact,
assessment, we don't know of the impact. Okay? You've paid your bill some months ago, and then they come and they tell you, oh, we have reviewed and so on, and we had to make an adjustment. And you make an adjustment of something that was completed.
Yes.
You send me a bill for $50. I came and I paid you the $50. That's supposed to be the end of it.
Yeah.
You ought not to just come afterwards and tell me, oh, we made an assessment and an adjustment. That's the word they use it. And in fact, we have to get $80 more. And we add $80 more onto your bill and then tell you that you're in arrears. These things are happening right now.
Wow.
Right? So, but it's not just the specifics. It's this disregard, total disregard for people and for the consumers. And this is something that is filtering through our society. We can't get answers to various things that are developing. But this is talking about, what we are talking about PAM. PAM, at the start, we were in opposition, but I can tell you we were a real action party. A problem is here somewhere, we're going to fix it.
So tell us about the water situation in Nevis.
There was serious water shortage in Nevis. Had always been back then. And we still, and the government of the day, remember that St. Kitts was really responsible for the Nevis infrastructure as well back then. And this young group of people called PAM, right, decided, man, we don't carry water to Nevis. And it was ridiculed because how much water you could carry, and it didn't even help. But we ignored all that. We got some of the tanks which they use on the estates, right? You see the tractor pulling the tanks of water. They come broken down. So we spent nearly all night down by Richard's garage on Princess Street. We had borrowed several tanks, a lot of tanks broken down, and we were
Welding
fitting them
them.
up. No, not welding. They set up with screws. And we were fitting them up throughout the night.
That must have been a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, but we had willing hands too. You'd start to do something like that. And the young people in PAM, some of them can't even vote, come out to help. That's another thing. And by the morning, we had put the tanks into one of the red boats, right? And we filled them. We had to fill the tanks
With water
in the
first.
boat.
Oh.
How else you get, when it's empty, you just put it down in the boat, right? And we fill all these tanks in the boat and then sailed. We went off to Nevis. It was a good day for sailing. We reached over there really good. And the word spread. And you should see people coming onto the pier with bucket and bottle and everything.
Wow.
Right? And the people were so grateful. Right? We had got the crane on the dock to use, and we lifted one of the things out of the boat, put it on the back of a truck, and we drove it up to Brown Hill. Right? And people came out
To get their water. Wow.
Now some people ridicule it and it's just a show they're putting on. But that was how.
And you in opposition, you're not the government.
We're in opposition.
Yeah.
You're not the government. We're in opposition. And so, but the whole thing, whether you use the words or you just look at the actions, this was how PAM was in the early days in opposition. Is a problem? We can talk after, but we can try and do what we can to fix it. That is it. So.
So what was the general response? I mean, did at that time? Well, I know you said that people were, I guess, thought light of the idea, but what was the government response even then? Because to me, you were showing up the government.
Yeah, but the problem in St. Kitts, to be truthful, in St. Kitts, it was greeted with skepticism, right? But in Nevis, it was greeted by gratitude by those persons who were able to get water on that day, right? And remember that when we started, we actually started. We didn't just stay in St. Kitts. We opened up a branch in Nevis. We opened a branch in Angola.
Yeah.
Right. We started in 1965, and we've had to face our first election almost immediately, 1966, and we won a seat in Nevis. We won a seat in Angola. The very first time we went to the polls. Right? So I'm not saying that it's because of that, but that was symbolic of PAM's attitude to the people of Nevis, and also to the issue of problem solving.
Yes.
That's
yes. Most certainly.
That's in opposition. But when we got in government, right, we then had to deal with the same situation, and we didn't pussyfoot around. Right?
The same water situation.
Yeah, the same water situation, because nobody's doing anything about it. Yeah. One of the projects we had got developed was that we had sought assistance from CEDA, the Canadian International Development Agency, to assist with the water program. One of the things was for them to give us, by grant, we have grant, well drilling apparatus, and also give us training for a team to operate it. Right? The gentleman who was in charge of that team, I think he's still alive, because I saw him some months ago. Mr. Pete from St. Peter's. Right? Some people know him. Right? He was in charge of that team. Of course, we also had to dig wells in St. Kitts as a general, because as the population, not the population so much, but the movement of the population exacerbated the need for you to be able to provide water here, there, and in places which you weren't necessarily having to do so before. Right. But that was the priority, maybe. So now we did. we sent the team and this drilling equipment out to Nevis. We left them over there. We put them up to live in Rest Haven. And by then, of course, we were the government. So we sent the team, put them to live in Rest Haven, and to undertake a well drilling program which Nevis required. So that is how we dealt with that.
Was this was different to the Kuwaiti water?
Oh yes, that came much later.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
And perhaps we can talk about to some extent, because something like that has to be looked at in a continuing context. If you are a developing country, you're going to develop hotels, right? Industry. Some you will need more water than different communities. You're expanding and
Housing.
and communities are springing up in places where they were not before.
Yes.
Right? So therefore, you can't wait until the need becomes more acute. As you plan your communities and your housing projects and so on, and as the various ministries plan for to deal with the economic growth of the country, you have to almost keep one step ahead. So as a matter of fact, Mr. Heiliger, when he came, he was supposed to be a candidate in the first election, but snow and ice and this terrible weather in Cincinnati years, he couldn't come back in time. And at the last minute, we had to substitute somebody for him. But when he came back, put him in charge of the planning. And one of the things that planning started to do was that someone could go to each ministry, right? Maybe I can't remember for sure what was the interval, but I think it was like a quarterly basis. You go in each ministry and you get from them what are your plans going forward, and how do those plans affect? Would those plans affect the provision of infrastructure? Not just water. We had a similar thing problem in electricity. At one time, if you were out, say, in Sadler's, by the time the electricity got there, the voltage had dropped, and the quality of it, although you had all the lines coming, and so the quality was poor, right? And we had to deal with that by a set of transformers and boosters to boost the electricity and to carry it as to the furthest points. Right? So you had to determine as you're going along what infrastructural needs you got to project for next year, right? As the case may be, and try to keep ahead of them. Now, something you didn't have the money to do everything at the time. But at that time, we were still getting overseas development aid.
Yes.
So then, you fashioned your requests, right? And you could based upon your planning along those lines. Right? So, I mean, for example, you will talk about I'll come back to that drilling just to make a point. But no, let me deal with the drilling now, because the education, I want to talk about education, but I won't. So effective was that drilling program. I don't know how people don't hear about things in other countries where you're doing it. That next thing we got a call from Barbados asking us if we would lend them our well drilling equipment, because they were also dealing with the water problem.
In Barbados?
In Barbados. Right? Well, I had to listen, because there's another story. I had approached Barbados within the first week of our administration to ask for assistance in developing what was a priority program for us, our school feeding program. Right? and they had loaned us a kitchen who was working in the office of the Prime Minister, whom I had never met. I just talked to him on the phone, but he came forward and assisted. Right? So when Barbados called, I kind of tend to feel I got to help. But I had to tell them no. But it was only no but. We're not going to let the equipment out of our hands in that way. But what we'd offered to them was we will send the equipment and the team. If you want the equipment, you got to take the team. And you're responsible for putting them up in Barbados, taking care of their needs, board and lodge and so on. They will get paid their regular salary. We will pay a per diem for them while they're out there. And man, they accepted that. And so our team, well drilling team, went to Barbados, were put up by them, and they were really very happy with that arrangement. Mr. Peach is still there. People wouldn't live around him, could go ask him about it.
Mine.
Right. See? So then when we got into government, it was a question of showing that we're about action, not talk. Right? So much so, I recall that in the campaign we made certain promises, serious promises. One, we're going to abolish personal income tax. Right? Okay. Two, just around that time, because of currency changes, $4.80 was a pound. Generally, we learned that in school, $4.80. But the pound at that time, we were getting up to $6 for the pound because of currency fluctuations. As a result, there was a windfall payment for the sugar exported at that point in time. And the government, Mr. Moore as the premier, right? Remember they called quick elections after they came back from London, talking about independence. They're saying they catch us with our pants down. That was supposed to be so. How will they catch us with our pants down? When they call the election, this evening, right? Next afternoon, our manifesto arrived in St. Kitts.
Really? Oh my goodness, that was we were more than ready.
More than ready. Right. But so this money now was gonna come. And the big thing in their campaign, man, we're gonna increase your wages by 17%. The normal thing was to do 3% or 5%. So they think they were doing something. And we calmly took it and said, nonsense. Get us all the amount of money. What are you going to do with the rest? The greatest need was the people. We don't care whether you want to buy a more tractor or more this. The greatest need was the people. So we said, when we win, we'll pay 25% increase. And the usual can be done. The amount of times in that 6 years I've heard the Labour government say
it can be done.
So it can be done about something that we're coming up with, right? So that is the kind of thing that I want to impress upon this generation of PAM, right? They got to be innovative. They got to be thinking creatively, but that when it comes to trying to make a better life for the people of this country, there is no can be done. It has to be done. Right? And it's up to you. You cannot necessarily use the same tactics or the same approaches that I used back in the day. That is not what this talking about it now is about. To say, well, we did this, so you now go and do that. No, you come up now.
Find a way.
Find a way to deal with the issues of today.
Yes.
But you, because of the grounding that you have in PAM, because of the fact that you can look back and see that PAM has left a tremendous legacy for people to follow. And the basis of that legacy is putting people first.
But so Ken, you you glossed over this abolition of personal income taxing. You know, I mean,
Well, yeah.
I was young, but I always had a love for politics. And there was always a conversation in the house about politics. So this young little girl was always eavesdropping on my parents' political conversation. And I heard this thing about the abolition of personal income tax, and I guess people were glad to also get the windfall from the Provident Fund. And I remember, I have faint recollections with the Labour Party government saying then that is impossible. Look, you can't abolish personal income tax. So where we're going to get the money from to fill that gap? So this was huge.
Well, that was huge. And let me look at the two, one at a time, but in a sense, the two together. Abolition of personal income tax and the payment to the sugar workers. The reason why I was kind of focusing on that so much was because the truth of the matter is the sugar workers were the
backbone.
bedrock,
Yes.
at that point in time. That's where you got your foreign exchange. At least you were able to export your sugar on the basis of that. So our view at the time is, man, take care of these people. Even if you took every cent that came because of that windfall, right? Government, you deal with your responsibilities out of the way, because this is not going to come up every day. By the next crop, maybe the currency drop and you don't get a windfall like that. But they say it couldn't be done. Well, I can tell you, I won't come to the personal income taxing, you know what I mean? But we got in. And immediately, we put the Ministry of Finance on notice. The sugar industry could not come up with a quick payment like that. So government had to subsidize it, come forward with the Ministry of Finance before the end of the week. When people go for Money Friday, it must be paid with back pay from back to the start of the crop. Right? So we ready. That in the first week of being in office, we paid that money.
The first week?
The first week.
But that was like waving a magic wand.
The first week. But how long it take? Right? You get in there the Monday. When you get in
this
there,
was
no,
1918 in February.
Yeah. You get in there Tuesday or something like that. And you tell them right away. Right? You go and you're the technicians. I don't know how to get the money to so quick. You do it.
You know,
You know. And they went, and you transfer the money to the factory, the payments and thing. They work out, the accountants work out who get what and what. And the people were paid by the end of the week, first week.
Wow.
Well, guess what happened? They call out some of the people, you know. Call them out on strike because even though they were getting more money, we didn't consult the union.
That's crazy.
Right? Well, so by this Sunday, PAM was back on the road just as in full campaign.
In campaign mode again?
By this Sunday afternoon, we had to have whistle-stop meetings all around the country. Right? Stopping in various villages. We went Keonway and we come around. When we leave Newton Ground, when we hit Mount Idle, Sandy Point, we could put out a table there, right? And a vase of flowers on a white tablecloth on the table there. First, when we come through, we had a meeting right up
only
on Mount
Sandy
Idle,
Pointers will do that.
right at Mount Idle. Right? Huh? And more than that, the fishermen in Old Road, right, decide, well, they ain't going out, you know, that their government is not going to falter. Huh? You all ain't gonna work. All right. They put down the boats. Huh?
And went to cut
Take
cane?
up the machetes and went to cut cane. Well, and they were so serious about it. They earned the nickname Electric Machetes.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, I know you think that the present generation wouldn't have a clue. But what I want to get people, this generation, to feel and to believe that PAM has left them something to build on, right? Not right, and PAM has left them an inspiration to think and plan and work, so that the whole country can be the better for it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we got. That's what we want to get. Yeah, man. That was so wonderful.
Yeah,
but we had to go back to get some people say, look, you get the money, you gotta come out to work. And there were some who didn't. Some who didn't. Right? And I remember one man, it affected him because some stayed off for a few days and they went back. And there was one supporter who was strong. Labour said, we mustn't work, go. And Labour saying going. Well, the problem with that, right, because of his age, right, when we closed Provident Fund and started Social Security, remember somebody started from scratch with the number of payments in order to get a benefit, right? Could never reach, and then he had to, had to stop working, and he went to some of the labor lawyers who couldn't help him. They led the people.
Misled
The people
them.
in the wrong direction.
Yeah. That's something else.
So our electric machetes came out and helped to save
that was a serious show of solidarity.
Yeah. No, you talk about the personal income tax. I got that experience from a nurse who was working in the family planning clinic. It's Dr. Jacobs, who had been doing that. He was then organizing himself, going to St. Martin from time to time. So he asked me to help him. And some days with any clinic, some days it's busy, and some days it's not so busy. And the not so busy days you sit down, you talk, and you listen. And I found that by listening, you learn a lot. This nurse said to me one day, Dr. Simmons, I really shouldn't be working now.
Oh.
So it don't make no sense. Her husband was working in a regional institution which was based in St. Kitts at the time. So we're getting a fairly good salary. She said, because when it comes time to pay the tax is just about what I am earning.
Oh.
Yeah. And that was, well, I thought people talk about it generally and how that it was, so that when husband and wife were working, there was a lot more pressure on them in terms of that. She said, I only become a children, go on school, right? And I don't want to sit at home doing nothing. Right? So, I remember we went back to our executive and we were planning for the inevitable campaign which is going to come up, 1980 planning. And we recognized that income tax was an issue. People complaining, yet it's a pressure, especially among the civil servants or persons who are working for a straightforward salary. You're directing a company or you own a supermarket or something of that nature, right? Or any kind of business, right? Your accounting can be adjusted to cope with things like that, right? It's either your travel expenses, entertainment when your agents come through and so on, right? So your deductions can be adjusted to ease the pressure on you. Okay. But when you're going out to work, you're civil servant, and you're getting X dollars every month, right? I mean, unless you have a whole set of children who are at an age that you can claim them, you're in serious trouble. Sometimes when you see what you get out, it don't make sense. So at the time, we felt that this was such a serious problem that Labour was definitely going to do something. But they're in government, so they don't have to tip their hand too early. We know they're going to do some more income tax. And suppose we go and say we're going to reduce it by X percent. They can go in the House, they don't even have to Senate, and actually reduce it by X plus Y percent. Right? And then what do? Then we come back afterwards and say, well, it's X plus Y plus Z percent. They look foolish. Right? So, Richard and I we were selected by the executive to look into this matter, right? And come back with a report. So we spoke to various persons with knowledge. We even spoke to some civil servants, and we got a sense. And one question we put, people in finance, straight question: what percentage of the budget, of the revenue, right, comes from personal income tax? We were told 16% at the time.
16?
16. The next question, the following question: can that 16, if you remove the personal income tax without adding anything further, can that 16 be recovered? And we were sure it could. Right? And we discussed the various ways that it could. The collections were kind of slack, and when you increase, there's no one thing, but you just increase your collections among various places, right? And reorganizing your collections and so on. You can cover that. Well, that was right up Richard Street, right? Because reduce waste, make people taking the government's vehicle and going all over the place with it and so on. And all the little factors that we're taking from. The long and short of it is that we did the figures and we recognized that it could be replaced. And we figured there was no way we could go out there and make an adjustment to income tax, reduce this or reduce that, right, while they're in government, and could go in the House one day and just slash everything. So we came out and said, look, we get in government, we eliminate personal income tax. Of course, you heard this. We can't do that. You're crazy. These people don't know nothing about. You can't put them there. But it sounded like sweet music to a lot of people. And I think at least they believed that we would do it.
I was just about to ask if the electorate believed you.
Right. They believed that we would do it. Well, we got in. And again, by the end of the week, first week, it was personal income tax was immediately abolished in this country. First week.
First week. That must have been a major achievement.
No, yeah. Yes,
it had to have been a major achievement.
But truthfully, very simple. If we had to go about it the long way and go in the House and pass a new bill and so on, and then that would take a while, and the 3 readings. Right? There was the Income Tax Act was there, which permitted the Minister of Finance to adjust the percentage in the various categories, up or down, in this case. So we just reduce everything to zero.
Downwards, yes.
Zero.
Zero, okay.
Just reduce to zero. And that's that.
It was as easy as that.
There's one caveat. We recognize that all that persons could get around it. For example, in a corporation, especially some of the most of the corporation out of family owned. In a corporation, what could happen then? And since it's you own it, you pay yourself a big salary now. You change your account, a big salary for all the top executives. right? Because they don't have to pay any taxes.
Right,
But
right.
they own the
businesses, yeah.
So we put a limit. It's down to 0% for all persons earning over, I think at that time, we gave them $8,000 a month. Maximum. If you give yourself more than that, you pay on the difference.
Oh, okay. But a lot of people believe that was the beginning of the mushrooming of a serious middle class in St. Kitts, because suddenly people had extra money to spare. Do you share that view?
Well, let me put it this way. What I have found in my experience, I was no good person dealing with money. That was not my strength. But I found my experience dealing with people, if you let people have their money, they will put it to good use. Right? Quality of life doesn't come just in putting on and getting new clothes, or it encompasses a whole range of things, right? Let me explain this way. Let me tell you, the year, especially coming on to the end of the year, man, you should have seen the pickups and buses moving back and forth, pickups in particular moving back and forth, the fridges and the stores and the beds.
Because suddenly people had extra disposable income.
Right? Man, beds. There was a story told that this man went and buy the biggest fridge he could get. And when he take the fridge home, the fridge can't go in the door. Right? He had to change up the door in order to get the fridge inside. Yeah, so it changed to people had money in their pockets. That was one of the effects of PAM functioning as a government. Right? We did the things that we promised, and people responded accordingly. Right? But to go on, I'll tell you that PAM made the most significant changes in the quality of life of people in St. Kitts in the 15 years of its existence. Oh, better than anybody else. Right? And I go further to tell you that every administration that has come after PAM, right, they haven't come up with anything new. They have depended on what PAM has
those
left
foundational
there.
issues, yes,
right,
yes.
what PAM has left there in order to develop
or expand further, or build out on.
In some cases, that they did that well, it was the right thing to do. But in other cases, I don't think they handled the finances very well, and I'm going to make a point with that as well. Right? Last election that we fought, when we lost, the leader of the Labour Party at the time said that he would not close the sugar industry, and it would be closed over his dead body. I'm thankful for him that he's still very much alive and kicking. Right? Because they knew and they recognized that the sugar industry was like an albatross around the neck of this country. But we managed it. We purposely, deliberately managed it and subsidized it, right? Because a lot of the what sounded like modern talk at the time from the experts. Oh, you have to retrain. So you have to retrain your society. We didn't train all these people who do not but cut cane and weed grass. We didn't train them. We trained them to do what? To use computers? Their children are going to use computers because their children are not going in the field to cut any cane even if it's there. Right? And that's human nature. You work to make a better life for your children, even
True.
though it may not immediately redound to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So then we're gonna cut the sugar industry. Right? But then remember, the next thing is those children coming out there have to be improved so that they can turn around and help you with what's going on. Otherwise you have a total breakdown and disaster. And that's why we carried the sugar industry on our backs for all the time that we did. But we could do that. We could do that because of the way that we operated the finances of this country at that time. The first year, right, we abolished personal income tax, right, in the first year, and we still came up with a surplus on a surplus on recurrent expenditure
Yeah.
of $10 million
Wow.
in the first year alone. Now, it mightn't sound like a lot now, but it's because of us that it wouldn't sound like a lot now. Because PAM, one of the things that PAM did, and the most important things, is that PAM introduced the CBI. And when we were out, people at that time could not understand what it could do. So I don't think it helped us. So we go into the election, we introduced CBI, we'll get a lot of money. That could not help us at that time. So we went change. And so a gold mine fell in the laps of the Douglas administration. Right? And in spite of that, what did they do? They made us the most indebted country in the world. In the world. Huh? We owed the IMF a bunch of money. Huh? All right. Admittedly, when PAM got into government again, and we, in a unity administration, initially, we started to use that money constructively. Right? And people start talking about the platinum
Product.
project, the best in the world. Yes, it was. Right? But PAM left you the best project in the world. And what did it do? What did it with it? Next thing you know, they start to devalue the very program that had helped to boost the economy. Devalue it. Oh, we can't keep that. To the extent that we set nearly the US, the Canada, the European Union, all came to attack us. Because, hold on a minute, you're just throwing around Pastor cheap, right? And then these people are using you, Pastor, to come into our country. Right? And they threatened sanctions, some of them employed sanctions.
Right.
And the sanctions were falling on the backs of our people who were traveling and who were out there. Right? So, right? But it was clear that the gold mine that they found, right, was the gold mine that PAM left you. Every important development in this country has been done by PAM.
Without a doubt. No, I don't think anybody can challenge that.
PAM is the best thing in political terms that has ever happened to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Amen.
Right? And our young people in PAM, right, need to be reminded of that. This is the kind of legacy that is handed down to you. This is what you've been learning from. When we were in there, we used to this morning, I wonder if I must call his name. Yeah. What's his name? I'll call his name. Roberts. Right? He reminded me how we used to send them on training. And they met Prime Minister Compton. They met all the prime ministers from around the region. right? When they went to different places on the training and so on. Right? I mean, it was Prime Minister Compton speaking at our convention one time. He said, developing, bringing development to country is like filling a bad pan with a teaspoon. Some people don't understand what a bad pan is like because that's gone out of vogue. But you may have seen pictures where you have this scrubbing board, right, in the pan with big pan with the water.
I know
that's the bad pan,
yes.
right? And imagine filling that with a teaspoon. And then some damn fool comes along
and kick it down. Yeah, I remember. I remember.
Huh?
Well, I think
that's
that
what has happened.
That
right
metaphor,
here.
exactly. I was going to say that we live that metaphor in St. Kitts and Nevis.
And one of the reasons why that kind of thing has happened since is that they get away. They try to steal the motto, the philosophy, putting people first. But it was just lip service to that philosophy. But if you look at the actions, right, they were put themselves first, right? And that is what has happened. This country, right now, this country is, if you hear the rumblings out there, they're looking to PAM. Right? They're looking to PAM. Right? Because when our country, every time there's been a crisis in our country, it is PAM that has held the country there and brought us out of the crisis. No question about it. Right?
The records are there to show.
They show, right? So, and that's the legacy that we have for those who are there now to carry on.
Yes.
Right?
I have one other note that I had made in relation to this whole discussion about putting people first, and this had to do with the Protection of Employment Act and the fact that when it was passed, it saved, it made a lot of workers not having to lose their benefits, and mention was made of Medusa at the factory.
Let me tell you the story of the Protection of Employment Act. When we first came into office, right, it seemed as if there were persons out there, right, who were looking for any opportunity to embarrass the government. Right? We had this factory, Medusa. Now the people on the industrial site and people going to work every day. Really, as a government, we were not looking into delving into the people's business. But we wake up one day to find that the man is not here, right?
The owner.
The owner is not here, and no money, and the people not being paid, and no money there to pay them. Well, whether instigated or spontaneous, the workers decided they don't mind to come down Church Street, right, to demonstrate. All right. Well, we, of course, our intelligence picked it up. They must have got bus or whatever to bring them, and they were just used for Church Street.
Yes.
For the demonstration. Come on. So it was alerted that these people are coming down from the industrial site and they haven't been paid and so on. I remember head of security was there. I said to him, look, we don't want any crowd in front of government headquarters. Business must go on, traffic must flow. I don't want anybody on this the government headquarters side. Meet them before they come down. Explain to them. No, I want to ask them, tell them that I want them to choose 3 people among them. And when they arrive, the 3 people can come up to me, tell me all about their grievance, so I will listen. I think that stumped them a little bit because I might have been looking to come down and make some noise out there, and a little confrontation and so. So they came and they all had to stay on the eastern side of Church Street. And they sent up the 3 people. Listen to them, hear them out, and realize that they had a serious issue. You work and you can't get your money. All right. So the first thing is I say to them, okay, everybody hasn't come down here. Right? What's a good time? I want to come to the factory and talk to all of you. Yeah. In my mind, they're going to give me a chance to see what is possible and what they could do. So they set a time, I think it was for the next day. And I used the break to consult with some people, my cabinet, inform me what could we do. Well, just at that time, the problem of Bank of Commerce was rampant, was going. So, sorry, I'm mixing up 2 different things. There wasn't Bank of Commerce here. Right. The first thing, my advice from the Ministry of Finance, I could freeze the money, what funds they had in the bank. They operated National Bank, and
this was the factory's account. Medusa, yeah.
Freeze all funds in the National Bank immediately. So that was done with effect. So when I went up the next day, I can say to them, look, this is what we're doing, and then we're going to get these funds and make it available to you. To cut a long story short, we froze the funds, we set up a system in National Bank, and the PAM produced the necessary documentation and so on, and we provided the money to pay the workers. Right? But that taught us a lesson. You can't have that. What happened when the next company
factory
goes, walk off.
Yeah.
And that was the impetus for the protection of employment legislation.
Again, putting people first.
Putting people first. You would think that something like that would have been on the books long time, coming from a labor administration.
Who is for the working class.
So
yes, according to them.
That's their big story. Right? But when you look at the facts of all the administrations, the fact is that the workers, the ordinary people of this country, got more from
the People's Action Movement government.
People's Action Movement
record.
Policies, what was implemented, and so on. Right? And in our PAM administration, that was always. You take a place like Port Zante. When we got in, we didn't have a Port Zante, and the tourism department was working. I mean, to improve, to increase
arrivals and all of that.
The long stay people, but also stay over people, but also to get the people, the cruise lines to start coming more. I have some pictures. One of those pictures was published in one of our manifestos. And you see 4 cruise ships out there. You see that a lot nowadays at Port Zante.
Yes.
But we've had them out there in the stream before Port Zante was ever built. But it's inconvenient. And then they have to let on their boats to bring the people to town. Many people may not remember that back then, in order to make it easier for them when they come, we would loan Carib Queen. In those days, you didn't go to Nevis back and forth all day, like now. Carib Queen would do a trip in the morning, right? And then they carry her back in the afternoon. In between, we loaned Carib Queen so they could go, and instead of 20 people.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, Carib Queen carrying 150, you go, and they made it a little easier for them to dock out in the stream. Right? I mean, all of that kind of thing. To make it more. Now, you might ask, well, why didn't you do something, more permanent at the time? All the reports that we had determined that And we had several, even before we became government, because the deep water port that we had up here, the cargo port, cargo port, was started with the previous administration, but they ran out of money. And so when we got in there, work was stopped, and then on top of that, the hurricane hit it and caused further damage. Right. So, but all the reports said that was the best place for any port. And after that, that was the only place around Bastia. After that, out on the peninsula, right? It was, maybe I was being stubborn. I said we put in no port, getting no money to build no port
on the peninsula.
Peninsula land is private land.
Right.
Can you imagine we put in a cruise ship here, all the people come off and going on somebody's land right away? Huh? I mean, all kind of problems and complications, but the biggest one was that our people not going to be able to go to a free access. Right? The little vendors can set up outside
with the t-shirts and the souvenirs.
And so on. And they can't get into the action. So no.
So that wasn't going to be an option for you.
We ain't putting that, not doing it. Well, I'm not going to use time tonight to recite the whole story. Right? John Compton was very instrumental in helping me come up with the idea of what we have now. And it's in my book, so if people want to spend some money, you get the book and read it. And see. But ventures, the opportunity, when I thought it was something that could not be done, I think, well, I must have a port. The port must be in Bastia, where all vendors can get it. It's easier for the taxi people and everything. I found myself showing me in St. Lucia how it could be done. And when he took me and showed me this thing, I said, yeah, all right. And I got in touch through him with the Matalons, who I know had done a lot of work in developing Kingston Harbour, all when I was a student. In Jamaica, the Matalons would work at Kingston Harbour. So, long and short is, we went in, we got the money, private sector money, loan. Right. And it was done that way because that's the quickest way. You got a project like that and you got to send it to some USAID or something. And
wait forever.
It's years.
Yes.
That is a forever. You may get it. But we had the road. The road was a USAID project.
The Peninsula Road.
Road. And at one point we nearly lost it. That's a long story. We nearly lost it at one point because of what we were doing. Right? So that was not the way to go. We went private sector. Bank of Nova Scotia International at headquarters is where we went. They sent down, had all the documentation, sent it to the man down here, and they came in at government headquarters and we signed. There's a picture, I think, in the book. And we signed the documentation there. So then when we started, what stupidness they're doing down there. Right?
For sure, I remembered all of the comments.
And they can,
and all of the insults.
And they can mash up this, the waterfront and blah, blah, blah. No. So you have to get creative. And that is what we had to do to the situation. But now they got a port, right? And the people who are worked there, the taxi people at the on the strip, right? They say sometimes 2-3 ships in, and they hardly get 2 or 3 people to rent a chair. Right? I think it was the last season. They lost 75 ships that were on the schedule. Right? And up to now, nobody think that they should
not
give any explanation.
Nothing.
Why.
This government doesn't tell anybody anything.
They don't tell anybody anything. Right? Right? Well, when we take over next time, I hope PAM get it in the head. Consult with the people.
Absolutely.
Experience, I mean, the examples. Because when we went and got independence, and the labor was, though they had gone and already got the okay for it, all right, there was a big shutdown, right? And PAM was against independence, and now they're talking all kind of talk. But we consulted the people.
Yes.
We had 21 town hall meetings in St. Kitts alone, right? I don't know how many they had in the East. Let them do their own thing up here. They had a different kind of explanation to do than us, right? But 21 meetings down here, right? And nobody was excluded. We went St. Paul's, we went Deptbury, we went everywhere. We went everywhere.
For
21 meetings.
That is a marked difference between the way that PAM operates and the way that the Labour government operates. I think, and even from my own observation as a child into adulthood, there was always, PAM always made it their duty to speak to the people. Unlike now, I mean, we hear things after the fact. We don't, and sometimes even when we hear them, we don't hear the full details. So we're never sure of what is happening. And I think, like you said, that has to change. You know, when PAM forms the next government, that has to change, because people have to be accountable to the people who put you there. Not like what we see now. But so Ken, the time is almost, the time has fast ended. But I just want you to.
Then tell me where you want me.
I just want you to kind of, you know, give me a summary of some of the things that you've shared in terms of all the ways that PAM have put people first, and including that summary, all of the foundational pillars that PAM has built in this country, from which any government, no one in the future, would build on.
Well, tell you the truth, the time going on, I wanted to get on the subject of independence.
I don't think.
Because that is the most important.
Well, we'll invite you back. We'll invite you back, because independence for me could be a whole next topic. So we have room. We'll certainly invite you back. You'll just need to tell us when it is you'll have the time to come back, because to talk about independence won't take 5 minutes. That is a whole.
Okay.
That's a whole. Yeah, I would like a session on that by itself, exclusively.
Well, you want a summary of
this discussion? All the things that you just, electricity, the income tax.
The income tax was a key thing to get you to start. Imagine a new government, people unsure if you really gonna know what you're doing, and you hit a home run, or you hit a bunch of sixes the first week.
Yes,
that was, so we were off to a good start. One of the things is we concentrated heavily on infrastructure, roads. Well, we get onto education, schools, right? Sandy Point Primary School, St. Paul's Primary School, Beach Island Primary School, Bronte Wells Primary School. I mean, you can trot them out, right? And all of those we will. Mr. Morris, in 1980, he wrote our education manifesto, right? And he put forward a 15-point plan for education, starting from early childhood right all the way down to post-secondary education. And now we've reached a point where we're doing university courses, and I have to make this point that the College of Further Education, which subsequently was renamed the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, was opened by Sidney Morris in September of I think it's September 1983. 88, September 1988 was opened. The first graduation, right, was in The first graduation was in November of that year. The CFE held its first graduation ceremony since its establishment in September 1988 on November 29th. And 158 students graduated from the college at that time. 110 were students of the Division of Technical and Vocational Education and Management Studies, etc. Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Kennedy Simmons, announced at the graduation that funding had been approved for the construction of the building to house the CFE. And that
graduation.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sidney Earl Morris not only started that CFE, right, but also turned around and built the building. It finished just after the election of 1995. But I get there because I want to make it's all tied in with the development of our human resources, development of our people. It is the people, descendants of the estate workers and others who are going to build this country.
Generation of,
So I want to say to people on the People's Action Movement, all right, I want to say to them, look, don't be bothered by all this hullabaloo and what PAM doing. People are desperate for PAM. People want PAM to show up, and this is time for PAM to show up. Right? Because, and I'll talk straight, you know. What PAM
look
has
in the camera
to do,
and talk straight, so
what PAM has to do right now, right, is to concentrate on winning all 8 of the seats in St. Kitts. I don't want to hear what you're going to do after. Anything we're going to do after, we can be thought of. You begin to think of it after. Our business is to go there, strengthen PAM. Right? I will tell you further that we open for business, and we are welcoming everybody. Labor people who are disgruntled with this ridiculous labor government we have. They don't know their tail bone from the elbow. Right? They are total embarrassment. Can you imagine you going to Dubai with a delegation of 20 people?
You mean Nigeria?
No, that's Dubai before.
Or before that? Okay.
Maybe the same thing. And they send back, and they have the gall and the brass face to send back pictures of them on the beach. Some of those people send back pictures of them on the beach. Huh? That is not
joyride government.
People.
Yeah, huh? This is the joyride government.
So I am saying to you, right now people want PAM. People are looking to PAM. But, you know, so don't mind the negative articles that come from someone who used to support PAM and so on and so on. Never mind that. I am calling out to people, labor people who are dissatisfied, PLP people, man, all of you, there's room for all of you. One thing, don't bring Timothy when you come in.
That is an exciting note to end on, Sir Ken. I think your expose tonight on putting people first was one that would catch a lot of attention for its depth and its meaningfulness. I think hitherto a lot of people did not know that PAM did all of those things. And so I want to thank you so much. As I said earlier when we started, we are so happy that we still have you around. We are blessed that we have you around to guide and to shape and to share, because this is exactly what we have as our main advantage in the People's Action Movement right now. So feel free to come back anytime. I know you wanted to talk more on some other subject matters, but the opportunity is there for you to come back anytime, Sir Ken, because we are the beneficiary of your sage and your wisdom. And so thank you very much for stopping by tonight to talk about putting people first. And indeed, what you shared was clearly how PAM's philosophy came alive with some of these things that you shared tonight. So I want to thank you again, and I want to thank all of the viewers who stopped by tonight to share in this conversation. We'll see you again on another edition of Perspectives. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
We love to serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness, we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here.